But then shouldn't we be having that debate now on what the scope of the voice is before it goes to the referendum with just this question?
Right now. The logic for a voice by its proponents is that Indigenous people are the only group in society that has a special provision in the Constitution permitting the government to make laws specifically for them. Therefore, they should be heard on that. Now, I don't disagree with that, but there's no need for that to be in the Constitution. But if that restriction were put in the voice, it would be much safer, but it would limit the scope. It's not there at the moment. But if Mr Albanese has raised the issue of limiting the scope of the voice, it should be in the Constitution, in the proposal that he would put to the referendum.
But then also, isn't it quite undemocratic as well, this idea that this thing will exist outside of, as far as I can tell, any other statutory body or institution, and it's bolted onto the Constitution, not as a statutory corporation would be, or, any of the other sort of, bodies that go to estimates hearings, have a minister who's responsible for them. We don't know anything about the governance of what this thing would look like either.
That's the problem. I've argued for quite a while now that this looks to me like constitutional change by stealth. The vagueness of the terms, we've already seen Mr Albanese attempt to address some of those concerns about the scope of the voice, but we don't know anything officially about its structure. We've got a pretty good idea from reports that were produced some time ago and have been endorsed by the Prime Minister. But we haven't seen the Act, and they must be working on that Act, on the structure, how much it would cost, where it would be based, all the detail that goes to establishing a new institution of state.
Let me ask you this. If the government decided, well, let's take this away from the Constitution and let's just legislate for a voice, would that answer a lot of these concerns?
Many of them. The thing about putting it in statute first and letting it have a trial run is if there's a problem with the scope, you can simply amend the Act without having to worry about a constitutional challenge. Now, there might still be problems, but that would be the safest way to go.
And one of the things that really interested me in your piece here, you also spoke about Freedom House and reports on democracy. And, we keep hearing from around the world that democracy is under threat, whether it's, they say Donald Trump is threatening it or Vladimir Putin is threatening it or whatever. But this, you say, also undermines the very idea of democracy. Tell us about that.
The principle is equal treatment, equal rights, that we're all the same in the eyes of the law and in the eyes of our government. So the minute you depart from that and start setting up one group having an inside track, if you like, to the ears of government, that is a departure from equal treatment. Now, a lot of people don't realise this, but democracy is not simply elections. Democracy is an entire system of government. It's being accountable for institutions of state to be accountable directly to the people, so that if an institution makes a mistake, it can be addressed. And this is not going to be the way the voice is established.
So, just finally, I speak to an awful lot of people who feel very uncomfortable about the voice, not because, they have any ill will to Indigenous people, generally just the opposite. They actually want them to be helped, and they want good results for them as they want for all Australians, but they feel like this is a real radical departure. You're saying their feelings are correct, but in a sort of one line, what would you say that the thing that they should be, focusing on when they talk about and argue with people and their friends and, New Year's Day and all sorts of things, and say, well, this is not about Indigenous people so much as it is about our democracy. What is the line on that?
This is our Constitution. No group in society has a monopoly on the Constitution. This project has been developed without a broad debate, without broad input by the community. That's happening now. The fact that people are putting up their hands and identifying problems is not surprising. Indigenous people should be heard, but I don't see why our Constitution, the entire Constitution that is owned by the community, should make a departure from democratic principles for one group.
Chris Merritt, very well said, as always. Thank you so much for your clarity of thinking on this issue, and I look forward to speaking to you in the new year. In the meantime, a very happy new year to you.
Happy New Year.
Thanks, Chris.